President Obama has heard a lot of questions about his leadership style since his re-election. Critics asking why he does not spend more time trying to reach across the aisle, do a little glad-handing with the Republicans on Capitol Hill. But in a soon-to-be-published interview with Vogue magazine, First Lady Michelle Obama explains the first couple does not socialize more in Washington because they want to make sure their, quote, family is whole, choosing instead to spend their free time with their young daughters. Joining me now to discuss it, Simon Rosenberg. He's president and founder of NDN, a think tank and advocacy organization, also former campaign advisor to President Clinton, and Mark Thiessen, who's a fellow at the American Enterprise Institute and a former speechwriter for President George W. Bush. Simon, your thoughts on that?
Oh, I have a lot of sympathy for the Obamas. You know, my wife works in the government, and we made a decision at the beginning of Obama first term that we both couldn't go into the government at the same time and be responsible parents. And I think that I know that my most important job every day is not my work, but, you know, making sure my 3 kids come out all right at the end of the day. And I have a lot of sympathy for the Obamas. I know that when I get that text message from my son saying I got an 86 on a test in the middle of the day, that's the most important thing that happens to me during the day. So, you know, I think that it's hard for families to find balance in this crazy society we live in today. And I think we got to give these guys a lot of space as they try to do what they think is right for the country and for their own family.
He puts that so beautifully. And yet I can see from the look on Mark's face that he is not going to respond in a beautiful way, Mark.
Megan, I can't believe you'd say that. Look, I actually agree with Simon. I have a lot of sympathy for the president. I worked all 8 years of the Bush administration. I saw up close the stress that the presidency puts on families. But just can put this, while I have a lot of respect for Michelle Obama, this is a ridiculous excuse for not reaching out to congressional Republicans. And let me give you some context. By his own estimate, in his first term, President Obama spent 600 hours playing golf. Yet the other day, Paul Ryan was on Fox News Sunday, and he said that his lunch with President Obama the other day was the first time he had spent more than 2 minutes with the president since taking office. I mean, think about that. It took President Obama till his 5th year in office before he sat down with the House Budget Committee chairman. That is ridiculous. So here is the problem in a nutshell. 600 hours for golf, 0 hours with Paul Ryan.
We love a prop. That helps everybody understand.
That was a good prop. That was a good prop.
So this is how it goes,
it's not
Simon.
A whiteboard. I'm not Karl Rove yet.
That's right, just a small one. But you opened with a beautiful sentiment about family and having your son and an 86 on the test, and then then Mark just dumped all over it. But he had some points about how you can reach out during business hours, and instead of golfing with your buddies, maybe you could golf with somebody on Capitol Hill that you think you could make some progress with.
Yeah, look, I think that clearly the president is acknowledging now, right, by what he's doing this week, that he needs to spend more time with members of Congress, that he's got to roll up his sleeves and be a little bit more like LBJ than the way he was in the first term. And look, presidents, not everybody brings the same set of skills. I mean, President Obama is a very thoughtful and serious guy, great orator. You guys talk about that on this show quite a bit. You know, the social side is not what animates him about politics. It's not what gets him up every day.
That is very interesting.
So I think that he's correcting that. I think that he's trying to broaden out his, he's becoming a better president. He's responding to what the critics are saying, and he recognizes he's got to roll up his sleeves and spend time in Congress. I think that's a good thing.
So I think
we
that's
should
very
be applauding
interesting, Mark, because
Simon,
all right, so if the First Lady is, covering for her husband, right? If she's saying something like, look, the reason he didn't socialize more is because we wanted to be with our family. And if that's not exactly 100% accurate, because there was time to socialize, he just didn't choose to spend it with the Republicans. Maybe it is not because her husband has an aversion to Republicans and reaching across the aisle. Maybe it's because he's an introvert. There have been so many reports out there that he is not a Bill Clinton, that he is more introverted, that he doesn't really feel comfortable doing that.
Yeah. Well, then how does that explain why in the weeks leading up to the sequester, instead of sitting down with John Boehner and the Republicans, he was out at campaign rallies warning about Armageddon and trying to blame Republicans nonstop for these supposedly disastrous cuts that were coming down. And now all of a sudden there's a charm offensive. I mean, look, Simon sees the president growing. I see damage control. There was a McClatchy poll the other day that shows 59% of Americans either think that the sequester will have no effect on them or that it will actually have a positive effect. And this is the most interesting part of that poll. By a margin of 44 to 42, They prefer congressional Republicans to Obama on handling the deficit. Okay? He's losing to congressional Republicans. The sequester was an absolute disaster. And so now all of a sudden he's Mr. Cooperative and having these nice dinners at the Jefferson Hotel and meeting with congressional Republicans for the first time since 2010 the other day on Capitol Hill. Where was he before? And let's see how long this lasts, because I think this is all about damage control and not a new love of bipartisanship.
Very cynical, Mark.
Simon,
I believe he's completely busted the beauty balloon.
That's okay.
and you know, but to be fair, truly, the president he's taken some flack for. We saw him during the campaign season, really, with Beyonce and with Jay-Z and Harvey Weinstein and George Clooney, and you know, he golfed with Tiger Woods after the election, and Michelle Obama skied in Aspen, and all this. You know, they have a good time. It's fun to be president sometimes. Who's that? Who are we looking at there? Oh, it's Sarah Jessica Parker.
Yeah.
She looks very different. Yeah. By the way, she recently said that high heels have ruined her life. Just an FYI for all the women out there. But, you know,
not yours, Megan, not yours.
Oh, please. I wear these high heels for these 2 hours on the set, and then they come off immediately. But he made time for them, Simon, so why not Paul Ryan?
So look, I think that these are a thoroughly modern couple who are trying to balance all of these rigors of being president and family life. And I think that, as I said earlier, I think the president is working very hard now, right, to try to, to be more available to the members of Congress that are here in town, and that they are clearly acknowledging that perhaps he didn't do enough of that in the first term. So he's doing it now. But I also think, to something Mark said, he's going to continue, as he did with the Paul Ryan budget this week, to communicate to the public about his views. There's going to be an outside game and an inside game. He's got to do both well to get the stuff done this year that he wants to get done.
I'll tell you what, if he really did spend the last 5 years with his daughters, who are now 14 and 11, and learning how to negotiate, the Republicans are in a lot of trouble. They're in a lot of trouble. What could hone your skills better than negotiating with a 14-year-old? He'd be a jiu-jitsu expert by now in negotiations. As a former 14-year-old girl, I can say that. Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you, Megan.